Degrees on Sunday, and we get sunny skies over the next few days as well. It's Tuesday when more rain and snow are a possibility. Right now it's 46 degrees and partly sunny. I'm Britt Johnson from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Politicians and political parties like to talk at and sometimes even talk down to the American people. But based on what the American people are actually saying, they may want to talk less and listen more. Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
One of the things that's been most fascinating to me over the last several years has been looking at how political parties and politicians are framing their conversations. And so often they are literally talking at, or in more often than not, talking down to the American people as if they know better. It's part of this elite 1% that thinks they know what the American people think, what they're happy with, what they need, because they're smart and they know better. The reality is quite different. And there's actually some new data out from Gallup. Gallup has been studying for decades now public satisfaction on 29 different aspects of life here in the United States, policy areas within the United States. And it's amazing to me that the politicians and the political parties don't seem to want to actually listen to what the American people are saying, but then they come out with these campaigns, they come out with messaging, they go on these tours, and they're saying things that are not congruent with what the American people are actually living. And I think if they would actually begin not with what policy do we want to push through, or what do we actually believe, or what is it that is our agenda, and begin from a different place. I know this is radical. If you actually start by listening to the American people, it usually leads you to the right place. And so let's look at where the American people actually are. So this is what Gallup does. They do this every year, and they go through 29 different aspects of what's going on here in the United States, what the American people actually think, or how satisfied they are with certain aspects of government or life in America. And the latest polling and the latest data that has come out from Gallup paints an interesting picture. And I don't care if you're part of Team Biden and the Democrats, I don't care if you're part of the Republicans or anywhere in between, you have to listen to what the American people are saying. And these are just the numbers. This is not my perspective. This is not my opinion. We're going to just stick with the numbers today. So here's what the numbers are saying. And you can see where both Democrats and Republicans get wildly off base because they're going on what they think the American people want, or what they believe the American people are feeling, or what they want the American people to be thinking or feeling. And those things are not always the same. So in these 29 areas over the last 3 years, so this would cover the context of the Biden administration. And again, they've been doing this for decades, so we can go back even further into data and look at that. But the interesting thing to me is that when you look at the satisfaction in these 29 particular areas, 12 out of the 29 have declined during the last 3 years. Now, they may be accurate or not, but this is what the American people are feeling. Perception is reality, especially when it comes to politics. And so you have to at least take a listen and then adjust accordingly. Some of these were a little surprising to me. Some areas where satisfaction has gone down and some areas where satisfaction has gone up that is a little bit interesting. So let's start with these areas, these 12 areas where satisfaction has gone down and gone down significantly. Some of these drops have been double digit, 12 plus percentage points between January of 2021 and January of 2024. And so here they are. These are areas where the public, the American people, have decreased satisfaction. So are you satisfied, not satisfied with the nation's military strength and preparedness? That has dropped by 12% from January of 2021 to today. This was interesting. Satisfied, dissatisfied with the position of women in this nation. That's actually dropped by 5%. Quality of medical care in the nation has gone from 53% down to 44%. So a 9-point drop. State of the economy, this is probably the least surprising of them all. Only 36% of Americans are satisfied with the nation's economy right now, down 7 points from where it was 3 years ago. And you can go on into energy policy, laws and policies on guns, down double digits. Immigration, obviously a big issue today. Nobody's satisfied with that. 28% of the country is satisfied with what's happening in terms of immigration policy. Government regulation, also down. Only 30% of Americans are satisfied with what's being done in that space. Income and wealth distribution, just 29% are satisfied with that. Here's the non-shocker of all non-shockers. Actually, this is a little shocking. Only 29% of Americans are not happy or satisfied with how much they pay in federal taxes. I actually thought that would be a different number because I don't think anybody's really satisfied with how much they have to pay in taxes. So as we look at all of those areas, including abortion policies, only 25% of Americans are satisfied with where we are there. So all of those are areas that are down. And so again, regardless of how you feel about those particular policies, the American people are not satisfied, and their satisfaction level has been going down over the last 3 years. So if nothing else, it should signal that we at least need to change the conversation in terms of how we're framing it on a wide range of things, whether it's policies on guns, whether it's dealing with immigration and the border, whether it's regulatory and taxes, whether it's our military strength or the position of women in the nation. Satisfaction is not a good indicator there. So that's, of course, a challenging assignment for the Biden administration because they've got to square that circle somehow in their messaging. And it is the area where the Biden administration has struggled the most because they believe they have policies that are making things better. And in some areas, they are making it better. The problem is it's not congruent. It's not in alignment with what the American people are actually feeling at home and in their communities. And so you, if nothing else, you at least have to change the conversation in terms of how you're talking about it. Can't just tout the economy when the vast majority of Americans are not satisfied with what's happening in the economy. So you got to figure out how do you meet the people where they are, and how do you change that conversation? So I think it's a really interesting look, as always, from Gallup. And again, they do this every year. Now we're looking at a complete set between January of 2021 to January of 2024. And there's a big gap in terms of that satisfaction level. And I think whether it's the Democrats or the Republicans, or maybe it's an independent group that figures out how to talk to the American people, not at them, not down toward them, but listen to them on these areas of dissatisfaction, could actually change the conversation and lead the country in a different direction. That's the conversation we have to get to. And it's important that it all begins, not by talking, but by actually listening to the American people.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson.
Hi, I'm Henry Winkler. My eyes are very important to me. My eyes connect me with everything I love. I loved my late father-in-law dearly. He always lit up a room, but his vision dimmed with age. He had age-related macular degeneration, or AMD. And since partnering with Apellis, I've learned there's an advanced form of dry AMD called geographic atrophy, or GA. His struggle with vision loss made me want to help others know about GA's warning signs. For some, colors appear dull or washed out. For others, hazy or blurred vision make it hard to see details, like fine print on price tags. Many have trouble seeing in the dark, making driving at night difficult. GA gets worse over time and cannot be reversed. If you think you have GA, don't wait. Treatments are available. Ask a retina specialist about FDA-approved treatments for GA and go to GAWon'tWait.com.
The nationally ranked Cougars are on a roll.
Foose dives low, wait, up, and good! Drops it over the 10 for 2.
Saturday, it's BYU, Kansas State.
Out to Robinson, long three. Oh, man! He just made a 30-footer!
Pregame is at 11 and tip-off at 12. Listen Saturday, BYU, Kansas State, on Utah's legacy home of Big 12 basketball and the BYU Cougars. KSL News Radio.
When's the best time to plant a tree? It was 20 years ago. When's the second best time to plant a tree? It's now. I'm Jeff Jr. with Trajan Wealth, and I remember years ago being sent home from elementary school with a small tree in a styrofoam cup. I know some of you can relate. If that was planted, it's now bigger than you are. Your finances are the same way. The best time to get started, or the best time to get a second opinion, is now. And with time and patience, imagine how big your financial tree could be. 20 years ago, if you invested $1,000 in Apple stock, it could be worth over $500,000 today. That is a big tree. Do that for you and do that for someone you love. Call Trajan Wealth today and help us help you plant that financial tree.
Call 801-899-7600. That's 801-899-7600. Or visit TrajanWealth.com.
Advisory services offered through Trajan Wealth, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor.
They say it takes 10,000 hours to become an expert. You may not have that kind of time for weatherization, energy efficiency, and appliance rebates, but we do. Dominion Energy's ThermWise program has experts who know where and how to save money. They help homeowners and businesses find simple ways to conserve natural gas and rebates through upgrades that may help to save even more. We put our energy into helping you conserve it, so you can spend your 10,000 hours becoming an expert in what matters to you. Start with a home energy plan at thermwise.com.
Sure, humans can be a little weird at times, but take it from me, I'm a dog. And a person is about the best thing that can happen to a shelter pet. So if you want to learn how you can be that person, get down to your local pet shelter or visit theshelterpetproject.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
The KSL News Radio movie show comes to My Hearing Centers this Friday from 10 to 1. But first, discover what My Hearing Centers can do for you. My Hearing Centers uses advanced technology to diagnose and treat hearing loss. These comprehensive evaluations determine the best treatment options. Then enjoy lifetime support with regular check-ins, cleaning, and maintenance. Call My Hearing Centers at 801-701-1629 for details. 801-701-1629.
Getting help with electrical repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson.
Our goal every day on Inside Sources is to help you divide the rage from the reason, elevate the conversation, connect the dots, and make the news make sense in your world. We have conversations with great thinkers, with great leaders, and great people who are just out there making a difference in the world. Now, we do talk about politics, but only so we can discuss society and culture. And then we explore society and culture so we can discuss principles and the people in America and the state of Utah who actually live them and apply them every day. We bring the best and brightest minds to the state of Utah, and we love to take the Utah model and send it out to our nation's capital and beyond. Every day on Inside Sources, you'll be part of that conversation. To help you understand things in a different way, we'll get you to think again about what you think you know, but most important, we're going to help you have confidence to have crucial conversations in your community and in your own home.
Join Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson, 1 to 3 on KSL News Radio.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Britt Johnson. First, Senator Dan McKay says a Salt Lake NHL stadium would be a generational investment designed to keep people coming into the downtown area. Second, China has decided that they will allow zoos in the U.S. to keep pandas. Up until now, they've been slowly taking them back. Third, this month may end up being one of Utah's wettest Februaries on record, which is good news for our snowpack. Right now, it's 46 degrees and partly sunny in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
Of course, Congress is out of town this week, recess week. Congress will return next week, and they have just a few things they need to get done. And I'm not talking about aid to Ukraine or to Israel or to deal with Taiwan, not talking about the border and security and immigration. No, we're right back where we said we would be. We are only 8 days away from March the 1st. And in case it has slipped your mind, we are once again looking at another shutdown showdown in Congress as time runs out to fund the government. About half the government has a deadline on March the 1st. The other portion is March the 8th. Either way, it's coming rapidly, and the options are already being limited and negotiated behind closed doors. So to help us navigate the next round of the shutdown showdown, Eric Boehm, of course, is a reporter at Reason, covers economic policy, trade policy, and elections, and always helps us get behind the scenes to figure out what's really going on. And Eric, welcome back to the show.
Glad to be here, Boyd. Thanks for having me again.
And sadly, we are stuck on Groundhog Day when it comes to government funding. We're having a hard time getting out of that model of the next round of shutdown showdown. So just tee it up for our listeners. What are you keeping your eye on as we look at this next round? Again, we kind of have this two-tiered thing that Speaker Johnson has put into place with a deadline on the 1st of March and then one on the 8th.
Yeah, that's right. And of course, Congress does have that extra day this year. We've got Leap Day, right? February 29th. So,
that's right.
You know, maybe that extra
day.
24 hours. Yeah, maybe some magic can happen in that extra 24 hours. But no, I mean, I think you set it up really well there at the top of the segment that it's, you know, there really is just a limited amount of time. The question of whether, I think the question at this point really becomes whether there's going to be some sort of big omnibus bill. Maybe not by March 1st, but sometime in early March, maybe a very short continuing resolution to kind of tee up that omnibus bill, or whether there might be a longer-term continuing resolution and another attempt to kind of kick these deadlines down the road, as we've seen a couple of times already. There was, of course, one of those in September at the start of the fiscal year, another one in November, and now, you know, that brought us to March. So I think it's kind of one of those two possibilities will happen. You know, we're not going to see a full budget passed or anything like that in the next few days.
No, that would be radical stuff. Not to mention the fact that they should be working on the next year's process. That's what they should be focused on right now. But there are like miles and miles away from that. But I forgot about, February 29th. Maybe the unicorns will come and solve all the budget problems this year on the 29th of February, because we don't get that very often. But talk to me a little bit about some of the things that are emerging. You alluded to maybe a longer-term solution. We know going back to last year and some of the deals that were cut, one of them had an across-the-board 1% spending cut. Break that down for us, and is that likely to be part of how maybe conservatives, the Freedom Caucus in particular in the House, can swallow a little bit longer continuing resolution?
Yeah, there are a lot of moving parts here, and that 1% across the board cut is kind of looming in the background. I'll get to that in a second. Let's start with, I think you make a good point there with your last question that, really what we're talking about here is we're talking about the current fiscal year budget, right? The current fiscal year started on October 1st for people who don't pay a lot of attention to the way Washington works. That's where we are. We're already 6 months into, or we will be 6 months into the fiscal year, or 5 months, I guess, at the end of February. So that's, Congress is at this point well behind that deadline. And as you said, really at this point should be working on the next fiscal year budget. The House has so far passed 7 of the 12 appropriation bills. And that's somewhat of an accomplishment, actually, because even that number doesn't usually get achieved in a single year. There's been this push by Republicans in the House to kind of try to nudge things back to so-called normal order or regular order, where the House, the whole Congress would pass these appropriations bills one by one, allow them to go through a committee process, allow them to do, the Schoolhouse Rock style of passing these bills and actually figuring out what should be funded and what shouldn't be funded within the purview of each of those 12 different appropriations vehicles. That, of course, has not been the way things have worked in Congress for a long time. You have to go back to the 1990s to find the last time that process actually played out the way it's supposed to. Instead, we always get these, you roll a bunch of those bills together. Sometimes you roll all of them together into an omnibus and you pass that, and then it's a simple up or down vote, and it really just doesn't allow for a lot of the process that's supposed to play out in budget making. So there's been this effort by House Republicans, by members of the Freedom Caucus in particular, to kind of return to that process, that step-by-step normal order. And they want to still get to that point. And so now I think there's some concern amongst that group that we may see a big omnibus bill or something like that come down the pike next week or in one of the next few weeks. And that will blow away a lot of the work that they've been doing behind the scenes to try and get the House back to doing things the way it should be doing it.
Yeah, that I know regular order is a radical concept these days in Congress, but I think we have to get back to that at some point, and I think that's any nudge towards that, I don't care who it comes from, is a good thing in my book. Talk to us a little bit about this spending cut portion of it that has both sides kind of up in arms. It has the more conservative members saying, hey, we got to at least have some kind of cut. And then you've got some on the other side of the aisle who are saying you don't want to cut anything. They want to add things into a big omnibus bill because that's the easiest way to tuck some of that spending into places where not everybody's aware of it. Give us a sense of how that might play out.
Yeah, so that's the pendulum that's hanging over this whole process, right? Or the sword of Damocles that's hanging over this entire process is that back last year, your listeners probably remember we had that big fight over the debt ceiling last year and the debt limit. And as a result of that deal, there were discretionary spending cuts that were agreed to. And this same group of Republicans in the House who want to see normal order restored, they were able to get a provision into the debt ceiling law, the debt ceiling increase bill, that said, okay, if Congress doesn't finish the appropriations process by the end of April, so April 30th, May 1st, then there will be an across-the-board cut of 1% to every program in the government. And that's meant to be exactly what it is. This is this thing that's hanging over the whole process to force people to come to the table, to force people to negotiate. So that provision being in there is going to make it very difficult for many Democrats to vote for a long-term continuing resolution that takes us past that April 30th deadline, because they don't want to see the spending cuts. But on the other hand, it's going to make it very difficult, I think, for Speaker Johnson to cobble together the necessary. He probably needs to reach across the aisle if he wants to do any sort of omnibus bill, because he's not going to have support, not enough support, at least from within his own caucus. The margins in the House, obviously, being as thin as they are right now, Republicans have a very small majority. Yeah, as I said, there's a lot of moving parts here, and this all, unfortunately, is being negotiated kind of behind closed doors at the moment. We'll have a better sense, I think, next week once Congress gets back of exactly how it's going to play out. I don't have any guesses at the moment, but there's a bunch of interesting dynamics happening here, and I think whatever does happen next week will really shape the future of Speaker Johnson of his term in office, and it will also probably indicate whether this bigger project about returning Congress to normal order or to something resembling normal order, whether that project is going to succeed or fail.
Yeah, great perspective. We will have you back next week, maybe even on the 29th, just to see if, in case the unicorns do come, I want you to be here for it. So we'll break that down in terms of what happens, what is happening behind closed doors, I think, of course, is the big issue. And I think Eric got it spot on as it relates to Speaker Johnson. I think this will be a very determinative week in terms of his future as Speaker. And then all of this juxtaposed into the 2024 election cycle. And remember, they not only have to do this, but September 30th will come. We know that will come in the fall, which means that's when they've got to have things done for the next fiscal year. There's a whole lot to be done. We'll continue to watch it. Eric, thanks as always. Great perspective. We'll have you back next week to see how this begins to play out.
Yeah, and there's the border bill and the Ukraine bill and all that other stuff that you talked about, too. There's a few other important things going on. It's going to be crazy. But thanks, Boyd. We'll talk again soon.
All right. Eric Boehm always takes us behind the scenes and helps us get an understanding. There are so many moving parts and players, as he mentioned. We'll continue to track all of it and help you connect the dots and make the news make sense. We'll step aside for bottom of the hour news. More Inside Sources coming up next.
It's 1:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Britt Johnson. KSL's top story this hour. This month may end up being one of Utah's wettest Februaries on record, which is good news for our snowpack. But spring is looking a little more uncertain. KSL News Radio's Emmy Kennington has more.
The National Weather Service has released its 3-month weather outlook, predicting what Utah's spring is going to look like. They say we'll most likely see above average temperatures. But when it comes to precipitation, the whole state is just listed as having equal chances. That means we don't quite know how much rain or snow Utah will get as we head into spring. Despite not having any clear idea of how much precipitation we're going to get, there's still good news on the snowpack front. KSL.com reports that even if Utah doesn't get any more rain or snow for the rest of the winter, we still have more water available than we had at this point in 2021 and 2022. Emma Keddington, KSL News Radio.
Our top national story this hour from ABC News. A rare ceremony at the Pentagon today. Secretary of the Army Christine Woolworth presented the Army astronaut device to Colonel Frank Rubio. Rubio holds the U.S. record for the most days in space for a single space flight. He returned to Earth last September after serving more than a year aboard the International Space Station.
You inspired audiences around the world as you orbited the Earth for 371 days.
That was the Army Secretary speaking. Your money at this moment, the Dow is up 437 points. The S&P has gained 104 points. The NASDAQ is also in the green, 461 points. Coming up, we'll take a look at the weekend forecast. KSL weather is next. KSL News Time, 1:31.
News doesn't just mean information or dates.
It's the story of our local history being told in real time.
Be a part of the story. This is Tim Hughes and Amanda Dixon.
We hope to be a part of your story. We have you covered on KSL News Radio.
Senate Bill 210 is a medical emergency at the Utah legislature. Ophthalmologists and optometrists are not the same. Optometrists don't complete medical school, no hospital internship, and no surgical residency. Ophthalmologists are medical doctors with years of surgical training on real patients. Now, optometrists want to perform surgery using lasers on the only eyes you'll ever have. Optometrists are not medical doctors, yet they want Senate Bill 210 to suddenly make them surgeons. Does that make sense to you? Your state legislator can help stop this nonsense by voting no. It takes years of training to make a surgeon. No bill can ever change that. Your legislator can help stop this nonsense. Tell your legislator to keep Utah eyes safe.
Paid for by the Utah Ophthalmology Society.
Okay, that's good. Whoa, Dave!
Sorry, I'll go grab some paper towels. You can't let Dave pour things. He works at JCW's. They fill stuff up past the brim over there, like their milkshakes. They're thick, rich, and oh my gosh.
Delicious?
Oh no. Dave's filling up Crystal's car for her.
Dave, stop!
Hey, this is Clark, JCW. Stop into any of our 5 locations today. We're located in American Fork, Thanksgiving Point, Provo, South Jordan, and our new location in Harriman. Come in and see why at JCW's we believe in quality, and a lot of it.
Adventure awaits in an RV from a Motorsportsland RV Center. Whether you're looking for a motorhome, fifth wheel, travel trailer, toy hauler, or folding trailer, Motorsportsland has hundreds of options to choose from. Our low-pressure advisors are here to help you find the RV you've been dreaming of. Motorsportsland invites you to any of our 3 locations in Mill Creek, Salt Lake City, or Spanish Fork to see a huge selection of premium RVs to fit any camping style and budget. We've also got an incredible selection of pre-owned and clearance-priced models to choose from. When you buy from Motorsportsland, you're supporting a local, family-owned business, and you get a hassle-free buying experience without the hidden fees and high-pressure tactics of the national RV chains. Find your next adventure in an RV from a Motorsportsland RV Center, and let us help you get away.
Let Motorsportsland help you get away.
Motorsportsland.com.
See the high-flying dunks, show-stopping blocks, and crowd-silencing threes at Delta Center this season. With an action-packed schedule, it's easy to get to a Jazz game, pick out an unmissable matchup, or just a tip-off time that works for you. It's time to put on your Jazz gear and head to the game. Come with a friend, a loved one, or as a group. See all available tickets and options at utahjazz.com or call or text 801-355-DUNK.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
Right now, I'm looking at a live shot of westbound I-80 in Summit County. It is past the Highway 40 junction. And if you are traveling in that area going towards Kimball Junction, UHP has all traffic stopped across all lanes. Not sure what's going on. We don't have anything reported yet. We'll keep you posted. I presume they're going to let traffic go through as soon as they are able, so be patient. Cypress checking account members enjoy discounted rates on auto and RV loans, free access to their credit scores and reports, and a suite of other products and perks. Learn more at cypresscu.com. Cypress Credit Union, your future is our future. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather. Partly sunny skies are here to stay for the weekend, plus it'll get warmer. Sunday, it'll actually feel like spring with a high of 59 degrees, but we can't get too excited. Snow is on the way for Tuesday. Right now it's 46 degrees and partly cloudy. I'm Britt Johnson from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, as we continue the conversation here on Inside Sources, of course, in the last segment, we were talking about the process that is staring down Congress, another shutdown showdown, which usually leads to a fake fight, a whole bunch of false choices, and more big spending without regular order. And that's actually how you get $34 trillion in debt. We often talk about conflict in Washington. It's collusion that's usually the problem. You can't rack up $34 trillion through conflict. It's both sides have to agree. And so you can be equal opportunity offender across the board, across parties, across administrations. It is big. It is hefty. And then the real challenge is now that we're $34 trillion in debt and counting, everyone likes to go to this idea of magic thinking and that the unicorns will come in and that everything's going to work out just fine. And it just doesn't work that way. Dollars and cents are pretty stubborn things. And so we're going to get into some of that magic thinking and maybe some reality thinking as well. Dominic Pino's the Thomas L. Rhodes Fellow at the National Review Institute. Had a great piece in National Review talking about former President Trump and some of that magic thinking of, hey, we can just drill and it's going to take care of our $34 trillion in debt. Dominic, welcome to the show.
Hey, Boyd, thanks for having me.
Hey, let's start with first just the proposal. What is it that the former president is saying in terms of where we are and how we get ourselves out of that big hole?
Well, obviously, with the former president, it's sometimes difficult to take him a little too seriously about some of the things he says, but he has said this on multiple occasions, and so I think it's worth bringing up that he believes that through drilling for more oil, that will help us to raise more revenue and pay off the national debt and cut taxes. He has said this. He said it most notably in his victory speech after the Iowa caucuses, but he has said this in interviews with Sean Hannity and a couple other places as well.
And so let's dig into what that really would be. And again, I don't care where people fall politically because we point this out on both left and right. This magic thinking sounds great. It works at a political rally. It's a nice bumper sticker. But it just doesn't work. And so just kind of walk us through what is the magic thinking of this particular proposal and why is it that it just doesn't add up?
Well, the most important thing is that in the United States, oil companies are private. We do not have a state-owned oil company in the United States like a lot of other countries do. And so the private profits of oil companies belong to them. Of course, they have to pay corporate taxes just like every other corporation does. But that is not something that's going to in any way take the money that they are receiving from drilling for more oil. The U.S. debt, as you mentioned in the intro, is $34 trillion. If we somehow by magic, again, this isn't possible, but somehow if by magic we extracted the entire proven reserve of the United States crude oil, which is 41 billion barrels. If we extracted all of that, we sold it for double the price of oil for the average price of oil last year, it would raise about $6.4 trillion. So it's completely impossible. And even if it was possible, it would come nowhere close to covering the national debt.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah. And so this kind of thinking is often where we get stuck, especially in presidential election years. But talk to us just as you look at things like this, and clearly there's a role to play, and energy independence and all of those are separate issues. But as you look at this kind of thinking, how is it that we get the conversation to a different place where we can say, okay, this could be one area that could be helpful, and we have a list of a whole bunch of other things that are going to have to take place if we're actually going to be serious? Because I think most of our conversations about deficits, even just the deficit portion, let alone the $34 trillion of actual debt, I just think it's completely unserious these days in our nation's capital.
It totally is. And we ran a $2 trillion deficit last year, which was the largest deficit in absolute dollars that we've ever had. One of the largest as a percentage of GDP that we've ever had. And that was in a year where we had no foreign wars, no domestic emergencies, no new major spending programs, and we still came up $2 trillion short. And so this is a problem that's only going to get worse. In 2025, we're facing about a $5 trillion fiscal cliff because in 2025, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, the individual provisions of that expire. A bunch of contract authority from the infrastructure bill expires. A bunch of Obamacare subsidies expire. And so we have a huge cliff coming at the end of 2025 that whoever wins the next election is going to have to deal with right away in their first year in office. And they're totally unprepared to do it. And when we have, one party's candidate, Joe Biden, is responsible for adding trillions to the debt. He would add even more if he had gotten Build Back Better passed like he wanted. And then we have the other candidate, Donald Trump, who's talking about paying it off with oil. And it's just completely unserious on both sides on this issue.
Yeah, okay. You snapped my head just a little bit on this $5 trillion fiscal cliff at the end of 2025. We've been talking about a lot of the other cliffs that we're headed towards. Just unpack that one for us real quickly in terms of what is it that adds into that $5 trillion and why nobody's talking about that portion of the program.
Absolutely. Like I said, this is no matter who wins, they're going to have to deal with this in their very first year in office. It shows up because the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, the individual proportions from that, those are the Trump tax cuts, commonly known. Those had expiration dates in them, so a lot of them will expire in 2025. So the entire so if Congress does nothing, taxes would go way up. But they're not likely to do nothing. They're likely to keep the tax cuts in place because raising taxes is very unpopular. So that'll cost about $3 trillion just for that. At the same time as that, there was under Obamacare, there are subsidies to households making up to 400% of the federal poverty line. Now, that those subsidies are supposed to be restricted to lower than that, but they were expanded above that as part of the American Rescue Plan Act that Joe Biden passed. That deadline also comes in 2025, and so there's going to be a shortfall there. That is another big issue. The infrastructure bill has a bunch of contract authority that's going to expire. And all those contractors are going to come to D.C. and ask for more money because guess what? When you dump $1 trillion into one industry, you get inflation. And so we've had huge inflation in the infrastructure sector, which means that a lot of projects cost more than they were expected to cost. So in order to finish them, contractors are going to need more money. And politicians are going to have a hard time saying no because they want to show off the shiny new bridges and highways in their districts that they wanted to have. And so if you add up all those things together, and a couple other things as well, we're looking at $5 trillion that's probably going to be added to the debt at the end of 2025.
Yeah, we've got to get past the unserious ideas, the magic thinking, and get to the serious conversations. Dominic, thanks so much for joining us. Dominic Pino, Thomas L. Rhodes Fellow at National Review Institute. Great piece at National Review. Check that out as well. We'll step aside. We'll be right back. More Inside Sources. As you all know, I've been doing my SOTA weight loss journey for over 2 years now. Over 2 years. I lost 37 pounds in 90 days, and I'm 2 years out, and I'm 37 pounds down today, this very day, because it's all based on science. It's not hype. It's not fluff. It's not potions and lotions. It's just simple science and a simple discipline process to help you with every aspect of your weight loss journey and really getting to the best version of the best you. You've got your own coach and nutritionist to help you every single step of the way. You're never alone when you're on SOTA weight loss, even in maintenance. I actually just had a check-in with my coach this morning to see exactly where I was and what I needed to do to keep making it all happen. When it comes to your SOTA weight loss journey, there's no time to lose, only time to win. Get started today at SOTA Weight Loss. SOTA stands for State-of-the-Art Weight Loss, SOTAweightloss.com.
Dave and Dujanovic here. You hear us every weekday on KSL from 9 to noon.
But have you listened to our podcast?
We're running a secret contest just for podcast listeners.
You could win a new pair of AirPod Pros every week in February just for listening.
Here's how you do it. Find our show on KSLpodcast.com
or wherever you listen to podcasts and listen for the keywords.
When you hear one, text it to 57500 and you'll be in to win.
That's it. We'll see you on our podcast, Dave and Dujanovic, with KSL News Radio.
If you only have a 401k, you're not getting the most for retirement.
Wait, what?
Add a Robinhood IRA on top, then they'll boost it by 3%.
You can do that?
And if you transfer in any retirement account, you get 3% on top of that.
Is there a limit to the match?
No limit. Robinhood Gold gets you the biggest contribution match of any IRA on the market. Sign up for Robinhood Gold at Robinhood.com/boost by April 30th. Subscription fees apply.
Investing involves risk. 3% match requires gold for 1 year from first match. Must keep IRA for 5 years. Match on transfers subject to additional terms and conditions. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC.
The Angie's List you know and trust is now Angie, and we're so much more than just a list. We still connect you with top local pros and show you ratings and reviews, but now we also let you compare upfront prices on hundreds of projects and book a service instantly. We can even handle the rest of your project from start to finish. So remember, Angie's List is now Angie, and we're here to get your job done right. Get started at Angie.com. That's ANGI, or download the app today.
Tonight on a Law & Order Thursday event, we bid Jack McCoy farewell in Sam Waterston's final episode on Law & Order.
It's been a hell of a ride.
Then on SVU, the stunning conclusion of a case that's haunted Benson. And on Organized Crime, Stabler searches for a victim from his past.
I'm looking for someone I thought I'd saved.
On a Law & Order Thursday event tonight on NBC.
Then stay tuned for KSL 5 News at 10.
Tonight on KSL, they found someone to build a deck.
He told me he was licensed.
They paid cash.
$11,615.
They were left with
nothing, absolutely nothing. He took the money.
They decided to get Gephardt.
Why is he allowed to keep doing this? That's the question of what now I'm trying to figure out.
Why some unlicensed contractors are walking away with big bucks and small consequences, and what you can do about it. Get Gephardt, cited but not shut down. Tonight at 10 on KSL.
I'm Jason Walton. In business, I mentor hundreds of Utahns as they pursue their American dream. The same dream career politicians treat with contempt. They send our money to our enemies abroad while shortchanging our veterans at home. It's not right. They're letting drug cartels escort criminals and terrorists across our border. It's time to stand up. So I'm running for the United States Senate. Stand with me. I'm Jason Walton, and I approve this message.
Paid for by friends of Jason Walton for Senate.
The KSL News Radio movie show comes to My Hearing Centers this Friday from 10 to 1. But first, discover what My Hearing Centers can do for you. My Hearing Centers uses advanced technology to diagnose and treat hearing loss. These comprehensive evaluations determine the best treatment options. Then enjoy lifetime support with regular check-ins, cleaning, and maintenance. Call My Hearing Centers at 801-701-1629 for details. 801-701-1629.
Over the years, you've brought opioids into your home. They helped when you were in pain, and you held on to them just in case. But holding on to opioids puts your family at risk. Learn more at www.fda.gov/drug disposal.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Britt Johnson. First, the National Weather Service has released its 3-month weather outlook predicting above average temperatures for spring. Second, a rare ceremony at the Pentagon today for the U.S. record for the most days in space for a single space flight. Third, a woman is suing the Bountiful Police for excessive force, claiming a police officer punched her so hard he broke her jaw. Right now it's 46 degrees and partly sunny in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson. And, of course, we used to always believe in this idea of innocent until proven guilty. Now we may be entering the twilight zone of guilty until you can prove that you're not a criminal in the future. I know that might be a bit of a head-scratcher, but that is where we've been heading, and there's some very fascinating things going on in our nation's capital as it relates to kind of the preemptive strike, preemptive criminal fingerprinting. And we're going to break all of that down and take a good hard look at that. J.D. Tuccilli, of course, is the contributing editor at Reason, Reason Magazine, Reason.com. And J.D., this one caught my attention. This was we're doing what? You got some senators talking about what we are and aren't funding, but tell us what we've been funding when it comes to preemptive criminal fingerprinting.
Yeah, this is a weird one. It's a field called predictive policing, and it's kind of a real-life implementation of the movie Minority Report, if anybody remembers that science fiction movie about, predicting the future, who might be a criminal to come, and who's going to commit what crimes in the future. This is an effort to actually do that instead of using, mind readers and telepathy, to instead use computers and algorithms. You feed in data, you put in risk factors, and they're supposed to spit out who's at risk for being a criminal and the kind of crimes that they might commit in the future. And if you're already seeing some potential dangers in that, you're probably ahead of the game, relative to the Department of Justice, because it's dangerous. You start fingering people for crimes that they have not committed, but that your computer says they will do in the future. And you could put people on the spot and put their life and their liberty at risk. Yeah. And this is what some U.S. senators pointed out. They wrote to the Department of Justice and said, you know what, these programs are already being implemented around the country. They're kind of turning scary. They're committing some civil rights violations. And since they're funded by the federal government, the Department of Justice, these senators and a representative asked the government to stop funding these programs until there's some investigation into whether these can be respectful of civil rights and civil liberties, and whether they can be rendered accurate at all, whether the government's even going to look into that before it cuts the next check.
Yeah, that is fascinating. This idea of pre-cataloging people who might be statistically more likely to commit a crime, according to the data that the federal government has put into the system. And, of course, that can lead, as you alluded to all kinds of racial profiling, discrimination. You can have all kinds of things that could be factoring in there. And so, first of all, this is the biggest red flag that came up for me was the fact that this is continuing funding. So we've been doing this for a little while, exploring this out. Tell us where we actually are in this process, and then we'll take a look at what happens next.
Yeah, this isn't just a bad idea that the government's kicking around. This is something they started implementing and funding 15 years ago, and it's in place around the country. There was a program in Pasco County, Florida. They actually implemented predictive policing. They started, running the data on members of the community, and then they would send police out to hassle them based upon their assessment as being at risk of committing crimes that they had not yet committed. A former deputy in Pasco County said that the point of the program was to make their lives miserable until they either move or sue. And in fact, a lot of them did sue. The Institute for Justice is representing a bunch of them. It's working its way through the courts. And last year, Pasco County insisted in court documents that it's dropped the program. It's no longer doing predictive policing as an effort, obviously, to try to head off more lawsuits. But already you've got people saying the civil liberties are violated by these programs. And in fact, when this same group of some of the senators who asked the government to stop funding these programs, when they asked the Department of Justice to say, okay, how do you assess these programs? We're over a decade into this now. Where do we stand? The Department of Justice couldn't even answer how many programs was funding, let alone say, and we've looked at them and they either do or don't pose a threat to civil liberties. They were just throwing money at programs and ending up with Pasco County, Florida's.
Wow, that is stunning that we're a decade into this whole thing. That nobody can really say that. One, does this even work? Is it? I mean, let's get into all of the legal ramifications, the civil liberties, and all of those things wrapped into that. But the fact that nobody can even say what it is or whether it's making any difference, I think is another big challenge of it as well. So what is likely to happen next? You've got this group of senators saying, hey, not so fast, my friends. Maybe we shouldn't be funding this kind of work. What do you see happening, and what is likely to happen next?
Well, there's enough lawmakers who are concerned about it at this point that they've stopped asking questions and started asking that the money dry up. And there are lawsuits now generated by the real-life implementation of this. So I think what's going to happen is that predictive policing is going to be on people's radar more. It's going to draw out more and more legal responses, and it's going to have to be dealt with as a real problem because it is violating civil liberties. It is not being assessed for effectiveness, let alone its impact on people's civil rights. And it's causing great difficulties, just kind of rumbling along without anybody at the wheel. So I think we're going to see at least some response to this, and hopefully they'll rein it in a little bit. Fingers crossed. Sometimes it's the best you can hope for with the government.
We've been dealing, JD, with a lot of magic thinking today. So we have some magic thinking that's going on in terms of how we're going to fund the government before March 1st and March 8th, let alone the fact that we also need to fund the next year, which starts at the end of September in an election year. We've also had magic thinking in terms of the $34 trillion that we're currently in debt. And, of course, former president is saying, hey, we'll just drill oil and that will cover it. That's one more version of magic thinking in terms of how we solve it. I think this predictive policing is another area of not just magic thinking. I think it is misaligned and fraught with all kinds of disasters kind of thinking. And so maybe it is Magic Thinking Week in Washington, D.C. Thanks for helping us navigate it, and we'll continue to track this one because this one gets really scary to me the further we go down that path. Hopefully the funding there will actually dry up. J.D., thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me on.
J.D. Tuccille, former managing editor of Reason, current contributing editor, Reason Magazine, Reason.com. You can always look to his writing. It is always crisp. It is deep dive. And it will help you connect the dots on these kinds of things. I had no idea we had this whole idea of predictive policing, that we're gonna fingerprint it and get in a database based on the input that we put in that may tell us that there's a chance. They're saying there's a chance that you may commit a crime 10 years from now. So we're going to get you in the system. So when you do commit that crime 10 years from now, we're going to have your fingerprints so we can haul you in. And again, there are so many civil liberties. There's so many different components of this that are just wildly off the charts. Clearly will not hold up in court, to be sure. Will trigger all kinds of lawsuits, and yet we've been funding it, and we're anticipating funding it again. And good work by some of the members of the House and the Senate to raise the flag and say, wait a minute, let's think again about what we're actually doing. And hopefully those that have raised the alarm bells and called for these programs, these predictive and preemptive policing systems to not be funded moving forward, that is just a disaster waiting to happen. And it sounds like in a few places where they've tested it, the disaster has actually come. And the lawsuits have been filed. Civil liberties have been violated. There's been discrimination. That's not how you go about this. Again, nice magic thinking in terms of how we're going to beat criminals to the punch. And it's sort of like pre-arresting them. So I'm going to make my predictive, not predictive policing. I'm just going to make my prediction that predictive and preemptive policing is going to fail miserably. And I hope it doesn't get funded this time around. Should not be part of the way we do business here in the United States of America. That's just not the way it works. All right, well, that's going to wrap up our hour number one of Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. We are going to go ahead and step aside for some top-of-the-hour news, but don't go anywhere. We're going to have a big hour number 2 coming up, including taking a look at an important event that took place in our nation's capital, actually at the National Cathedral last night, including Utah's Governor Spencer Cox, along with the Governor of Maryland, Wes Moore, and others, as we look at a different kind of conversation coming out of our nation's capital. We'll take you there to some really interesting insight. Coming up next on Inside Sources. Stick around.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
It's 2 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Britt Johnson. KSL's top story this hour, a woman is suing the Bountiful Police for excessive force. KSL News Radio's Alexandria Bonilla reports.
Greta Jensen claims an officer punched her so hard he broke her jaw when she didn't even commit a crime. Court documents say it started when police got a call about Jensen and her ex-husband arguing. The officer allegedly asked her to stay back for the purpose of investigating, but when she walked away and refused to get on the ground, he tackled her and punched her in the jaw. She was arrested for interfering with an arresting officer and disorderly conduct. Both of those charges have since been dismissed. The police department says they are investigating the claim. Alexandria Bonilla, KSL News Radio.
We all know last winter was record-breaking, but Solitude just reported that they've gotten 121 inches of snow this February. That's more snow this month than last February. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Opening statements are underway at a Santa Fe courtroom today for the involuntary manslaughter trial of Rust armorer Hannah Gutierrez-Reed in the 2021 shooting death of cinematographer Helena Hutchins.
Just because there was a tragedy does not mean that a crime was committed. It does not mean that Hannah Gutierrez-Reed caused the crimes they have charged her with.
That was Gutierrez-Reed's attorney, Jason Bowles. Your money at this moment, the Dow in the green, 456 points. The S&P is also up 105 points, and the NASDAQ has gained 460 points. Coming up, it's looking like a beautiful weekend. KSL weather is next. KSL News Time, 2:01.
You know what's great about KSL's traffic coverage? Trained traffic reporters and real listeners.
Trading information and making the commute safer and faster for everyone.
Every 10 minutes on the nines, we have you covered on KSL News Radio.
Guys, did you know your testosterone affects everything in your system, including how you feel and perform every day? Right now, Revive Men's Health Salt Lake City will check your testosterone for free. Knowing your T levels is the first step in understanding if you have low T. Your testosterone level impacts your energy, libido, sleep, weight, hair loss, mood, and even ED. Maintaining an appropriate T level can change your whole life. Most men start to see changes in their hormone levels in their 30s. Experience and results matter. So what are you waiting for? Get your T levels checked today by local, experienced, and trusted men's health experts. They've helped thousands of men since 2011. They're so confident they can help you, they even guarantee it. Call Revive today and schedule your free testosterone test, free exam, and free consultation. Call Revive Men's Health at 801-263-7777. That's 801-263-7777. Or visit ReviveMen'sHealth.com.
Have you Googled yourself lately? Are there negative posts from an ex-employee or from a former client? Maybe an outdated news article or sensitive personal information about your family? Search engines don't always get it right. For right or wrong, it's your reputation on the line. That's where Reputation Defender by Norton comes in. One of the most trusted names in online reputation repair, Reputation Defender has been fixing people's search results for over 15 years. Their cutting-edge approaches help you to wipe away unwanted information in your search results. They also promote the good stuff so that it rises to the top, helping you put your best foot forward. Your good name is too valuable to leave to the whims of a Google algorithm. Take control with Reputation Defender. You can start by getting your free reputation report card at reputationdefender.com or call 800-401-6681 to speak to an expert. That's 800-401-6681.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now. 800-530-9353. Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS. There is zero risk to you. If we can't reduce your tax debt, then you pay nothing. Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems. We have a 5-star rating on Google and Yelp and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau. You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmare today by visiting us online at TRA.com or call 800-530-9353. That's 800-530-9353. Tax Relief Advocates. Real solutions for real people.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
In Utah County, we have a road closure due to a gas issue in the Provo area. It's 200 south between 400 and 500 west. With fresh snow comes fresh tracks at Murdoch Hyundai. Right now, receive 0% for 3 years on a Tucson or Santa Fe. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, it's sunny skies, and they'll be here for the next several days. Also, a little bit warmer as well. Our high today is 47 degrees, and it'll climb into the upper 50s for the weekend. Next week looks a little cooler and a little wetter, though. Right now, it's 46 degrees and partly cloudy. I'm Britt Johnson from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We are Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
As we continue to look at our very polarized and often poisonous politics in this country, as we've been talking on this show for years now, going back to 2020, we've been talking about disagreeing differently, disagreeing better, disagreeing respectfully, and getting to an elevated, different kind of conversation. Well, last night in our nation's capital, that was put to the test in a new way. You had a Republican and a Democrat, both governors, along with some politicos like Donna Brazile and Kennedy clan Tim Shriver, an activist, along with a host of others, walked into the National Cathedral last night and started a conversation that I think should change the conversation when it comes to how we disagree in the country. Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
Last night was a fascinating event in the National Cathedral, a historic and majestic place to hold any kind of event. And big kudos to friend of the show and former D.C. Circuit Judge Thomas Griffith, who was really the driving force in bringing all of these people together. And it was noted several times during the course of the evening that the reason everyone showed up was because Judge Griffith asked them to. That speaks volumes in terms of the relationships that he has developed across the political spectrum and into so many places to help change the dialogue in the country. The event was a really unique partnership with the Wheatley Institute at Brigham Young University, Wesley Theological Seminary, and of course it was sponsored by Deseret Magazine. And Governor Cox and the governor of the state of Maryland, Wes Moore, really kicked things off with a fascinating conversation back and forth as the two talked about things that were working, things that they were worried about in their respective states and in the country, and how whether it was Governor Moore looking at it from a more democratic perspective or Governor Cox looking at it from the political right, how the models of conversation can bring us to a different place in the conversation. So let's start with the governor of Maryland, Wes Moore. Again, they're sitting in this majestic National Cathedral last night, and Governor Moore began by describing why he was part of this conversation and initiative.
I don't believe you can't claim to love the country if you hate half of the people in it. And so the idea of disagree better, the idea of being able to say we actually have an opportunity to have genuine debates and disagreements, that we're not going to, there are things that we fundamentally disagree on, and that's okay. Yet at the same time, How we do it, how we engage, how we choose to work together, that matters. Because it still comes down to, do you see and understand the humanity of the person that is sitting next to you?
During the discussion, Governor Moore complimented Utah on some very interesting components. He said everything from the lowest child poverty rate in the country, something that he's trying to do and change in the state of Maryland. Governor Cox talked about how these kinds of things get achieved in the state and how the private efforts are really essential, not just government, in terms of creating resilient communities.
I tell companies when they relocate to Utah and we give them, a tax incentive to do that, a post-performance tax incentive, I say this, look, we're excited. We want you to come to Utah, but you need to know something. If you're coming here, you have a duty to give back, and we expect you to give back. In fact, I released an executive order just last year that requires every company who gets a tax incentive in Utah, they're required now to give volunteer hours in their community if they want that tax incentive. They have to give back. For the very reasons that you mentioned, we know that that builds community, it solves problems, and it depolarizes our country.
That was a really interesting point for me during the course of the conversation, was how both of these governors talked about what happens when we come together in service. When you do service in the community, the polarization goes down. Why? Because if you're standing shoulder to shoulder with somebody with a shovel or working at a food pantry or a soup kitchen, when you're doing that kind of work together, nobody's asking who you voted for president. No one's debating whatever the hot social topic is of the day. You're doing things that make a difference, and so that polarization goes down. The Maryland governor, Wes Moore, he actually passed a bill in the state of Maryland that guaranteed service opportunities for young people, for students. And he talked about why this is such a high priority in his state.
And there was a few big reasons why we were working to prioritize it. One is I'm a big believer in experiential learning. And particularly for our young people, if you give them an opportunity to find that thing that can help to explore their interests and give them a pathway to do it, it's not just going to change them, it'll change the trajectory of their family.
So important, that change of trajectory. And I love the fact that they were talking about some real policy initiatives that are good public policy, but also have this added benefit of bringing people together and diffusing some of the politics as usual stuff that we're all exhausted and exasperated by. Now, the governor of Maryland went a little deeper on this whole idea of service, saying that the generation of young people who learn how to serve together, they're the ones who are actually going to save the country and re-strengthen our society.
Service is sticky, and those who serve together will stay together. And in this time of political divisiveness and political vitriol, and where people seem to care more about where the idea come from than is it a good idea, I believe that service will save us. Service will save our society. Because if we can be a state that gets to know each other again, if we can be a state that serves together, if we can be a state where people find an opportunity to explore different parts of the state that they did not know about, or meet people that they would have never had the opportunity to get to know, it'll change their perspective about what is their contribution and what is the potential contribution of the person on the other side of town.
I love that. Service is sticky. It does create sticky relationships and connections that form that connective tissue that we have to have strong communities and strong countries. And so it all begins with that. And it will start with those young people. So I love that both our Governor Spencer Cox and also the Governor of Maryland, Wes Moore, are talking about interesting ways that the byproduct of this kind of good policy is that it actually helps build society and breaks down some of those barriers, breaks down a lot of the misunderstandings, gets rid of a lot of the contempt and hate and anger and frustration, because that's the thing that brings us together. It's sticky. Service is sticky, and that's why we do need that if we're going to stick together as a country. Well, we're going to stay with the conversation from last night. Again, it was an extraordinary event taking place at the National Cathedral in our nation's capital, really brought together by our good friend Judge Thomas Griffith, and those at the Wheatley Institute, along with Wesley Theological Seminary, sponsored by Deseret Magazine. And we're going to stay with that conversation because I think it matters. And when we come back, we're going to get into some of the exchange with ABC's Donna Brazile, longtime Democratic strategist Tim Shriver, of course, who's been an activist, part of the Dignity Index and a host of other things, along with some other great thinkers who are trying to help all of us change the course and the context of our conversations, not just in our nation's capital, but across the country. We'll be right back.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson.
Have you Googled yourself lately? Are there negative posts from an ex-employee or from a former client? Maybe an outdated news article or sensitive personal information about your family? Search engines don't always get it right. For right or wrong, it's your reputation on the line. That's where Reputation Defender by Norton comes in. One of the most trusted names in online reputation repair, Reputation Defender has been fixing people's search results for over 15 years. Their cutting-edge approaches help you to wipe away unwanted information in your search results. They also promote the good stuff so that it rises to the top, helping you put your best foot forward. Your good name is too valuable to leave to the whims of a Google algorithm. Take control with Reputation Defender. You can start by getting your free reputation report card at reputationdefender.com. Or call 800-401-6681 to speak to an expert. That's 800-401-6681.
Sometimes you just need to know.
The man is in police custody. The FBI is investigating the incident.
Other times, you need to know more.
The police have said there is no threat right now.
The why is also really important, and we'll get to more on that in just a moment.
Get breaking news from Tim and Amanda first thing in the morning. Then join Dave, Debbie, and Boyd Matheson for deeper conversation about the news in your middays. And Jeff Kaplan on the drive home when you want to know more.
We have you covered
all day
on KSL News Radio.
Derek Overstreet, founder of the New Millennium Group. We're a financial planning firm. Listen, we're fiduciaries. We have advisors standing by right now to take your call. That's 888-999-6370. 888-999-6370. The reason you're going to want to call is we're going to help you retire 3 to 5 years before you thought possible. Now, imagine how that would be if you could actually retire 3 to 5 years sooner than your plan was. The way we do this is by putting together a step-by-step plan, taking into consideration any rental properties that you have, any pension income that you have, your Social Security. Listen, we put that all together for you in writing. It will allow us to build your income based on inflation. You know, inflation has been rapidly rising. You and I both need a plan that whatever we start out our income at, in 5 or 10 years, we're going to need 40% more income. So if you're one of those people listening and you'd like a plan in writing, give us a call at 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370, or go to utahsfinancialplanner.com.
Grab your family and some gear and head to the 2024 Skijoring the Bear exhibition in Garden City on Friday, February 23rd. Bring your skis and join the race, or attend as a spectator to watch horses pull skiers through a course with jumps. Race divisions include Open, Novice, and Rookie, with buckles and cash prizes for the division winners. Everyone can enjoy food trucks, vendors, and more. Skijoring the Bear in Garden City, just west of Heritage Park. Helmets are required for skijoring, and you need to bring your own skis. Kids 10 to 12 are free. Great lodging deals can be found at bearlake.org. Attend this exhibition event on Friday, February 23rd to see or experience the excitement of skijoring. Visit skijoringthebear.com for more information. skijoringthebear.com.
Before a disaster turns your family's world upside down, it's up to you to be ready. Get a kit, make a plan, be informed. Learn how at www.ready.gov. Brought to you by the Federal Emergency Management Agency and the Ad Council.
Progressive knows we're all trying to save right now.
Hey, at least we're still enjoying baseball on a Saturday night, right? Even if it is T-ball. Yeah, but tickets to the majors are just so expensive now. And who knows, maybe we're seeing a pro in the making.
Sure, in like 20 years.
How is he safe?
Boo! This ump stinks!
The ump is only 14. We don't really do that.
Oh, my bad. You're doing a great job, ump.
Progressive offers you savings without sacrifice. So save big when you bundle home and auto. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and other insurers. Not available in all states.
It's a mystery where Old Spice finds its amazing scents like Himalayan sea salt, but I'm thrilled they have because no other body wash exfoliates and moisturizes 24/7 like Old Spice Gentleman's Himalayan sea salt body wash. Now, if only there was a mountain range separating the Indian subcontinent from the Tibetan plateau where I could hide my Old Spice and keep my family from stealing it, my impossibly smooth skin will finally be safe.
Any Hour Services can help you make sure your furnace keeps you warm this winter. Whether you need a tune-up, a repair, or a second opinion about replacing it, call Any Hour Services or visit anyhourservices.com.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Britt Johnson. First, a woman is suing the Bountiful Police for excessive force, claiming a police officer punched her so hard he broke her jaw. Second, Solitude just reported that they've gotten 121 inches of snow this February. That's more snow this month than last February. Third, opening statements are underway in a Santa Fe courtroom today for the involuntary manslaughter trial of a Rust armorer, Hannah Gutierrez Reed, in the 2021 shooting death of a cinematographer. Right now it's 46 degrees and partly cloudy in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Get deeper insights on the news from Inside Sources.
We're staying with the conversation from an important conversation that took place at the National Cathedral in our nation's capital last night. It was titled With Malice Toward None and With Charity for All. As we mentioned before, it was really navigated and orchestrated by a good friend of the show, former D.C. Circuit Court Judge Thomas Griffith. Brought together an amazing group, including the governor of the state of Utah, Spencer Cox, the governor of Maryland, Democrat Wes Moore, along with just an amazing group of panelists that we're going to get to in just a second. I'm actually going to have a deep dive conversation with Judge Thomas coming up for Sunday edition on KSL TV. You can check that out, 9 a.m. on Sunday. We'll do a deep dive on the whole conversation and behind-the-scenes conversations from the event with Malice Toward None and Charity for All. So I want to get into some of these other panelists and what they had to add to this conversation because I found it very fascinating last night and very informative in terms of where we are and how we can do this a little bit different. One of those on the panel there at the National Cathedral was Dr. Ruth Okediji, a Harvard law professor, and Governor Cox interviewed her as part of this panel discussion, and she talked about the importance of older generations and their role to make sure they lead the way to show the younger people that today's current political climate is not the way things have always been.
I think it's really important for us, and certainly our generation, you've made this point, that if we don't model what it means to love your enemies, to love your neighbors, to be your brother's keeper, your sister's keeper, that we are raising a generation that will not know anything but the current political moment as the norm. And that's a problem. When I speak to my students, I don't speak to them about covering their disagreements or even hiding who they are. But I tell them that their ability to honor the dignity of every person that they encounter requires them to develop the art of listening to what the other person has to say.
I love that, honoring the dignity of the other person in your conversation, especially if it's a disagreement. You don't have to agree with them, but you have to honor the dignity, even the divinity that is in that other person. Dr. Ruth Okediji, again, Harvard law professor, she went on to talk about strategies and some of the topics she uses with her students there at Harvard to promote disagreement while fostering the kind of humility that leads to compassion in our conversations.
When we hear from one another, I quote to them all the time about iron sharpens iron. And when you teach in a competitive environment, anything that gets them to be better is always a win. And I encourage them that your best arguments come not from practicing or thinking or regurgitating the things that you already know and believe, but by hearing a perspective that you may be too blind to see. And that not only produces humility, but it also produces a capacity for compassion And I think humility and compassion are essential to our capacity to improve and to really bring about a revival in our political system today.
One of the most delightful segments of the program at the National Cathedral last night was when former chairwoman of the Democratic National Committee, Donna Brazile, you recognize her. She's been a longtime political commentator. She was a campaign manager for Al Gore in his presidential run. And then she developed this fascinating, important relationship with George Bush after Hurricane Katrina. So I want you to listen carefully. This was just a delightful segment of the event last night at the National Cathedral, and it gave me some really interesting insight into what really makes Donna Brazile tick and why thick relationships that come from serving together really do matter in this country and transcend our politics.
And so I found myself in a position where I knew people in the Bush administration. And rather than go on national TV and offer criticisms, I went on national TV and I basically said, Mr. President, how can I help you? And I had no idea that for over 3 years I would sit in Bush White House more than I had ever sat in Bill Clinton's White House. I was a kid who could go to President Bush and say, we need to fix the levees and rebuild the schools and bring people back home. And to this day, he calls me one of the most expensive dates that ever came through the White House. And I call him my president. On the 10th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina, I flew down to Louisiana on Air Force One. President Obama said, are you coming with me? I said, yes, sir. I'm going to start the morning off with you in the 9th Ward in downtown. And then I'm going to welcome President and Mrs. Bush to my hometown. And they came. Nobody booed. We played the music. The president did his best dance. And I look forward, if God allows me, during the 20th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina next year, to bring both my presidents back home, because we've made a lot of progress.
As former chairwoman of the Democratic National Committee, Donna Brazile, and a lot of people recognize her as someone who's been involved in a lot of really tough political conversations over the years, particularly on cable news. But I think it's so important that we go back and we recognize that. I love the fact that Donna Brazile pointed out that even though she'd been part of the Democratic machine for so many years, that she ended up, after Hurricane Katrina, spending more time in the George W. Bush White House than she did when Bill Clinton was in the White House. And they had this friendship, they had this connection. Why? Because they served together, because they were both focused on Louisiana and the people of Louisiana, and what could they do together? What could they do together to make it better and to make a difference for the citizens, not for the politicians, not for the parties, but for the people? That's a great model. And I love the way she framed that in the context of the anniversary, the 10th anniversary, that she was there both with the Obamas and with the Bushes. And hopefully that will happen again. But those are the kinds of friendships that we don't hear nearly enough about in our divisive political realms. But those are the kinds of friendships that change the nation because they change individuals. I want to go to some comments from our friend Tim Shriver, also a good friend of the show. He's spoken a lot about the Dignity Index and their organization with Ignite. And he talked about some of the things, and this was a really interesting component to me. Of course, in his family, growing up in the Kennedy household, everything was about politics, a lot of conversations about politics, but they could see the people in the midst of that. Both Governor Cox and Governor Moore talked about growing up in kind of non-political families where they didn't know the politics of their neighbors or those in their community. But how all of that, it's how we see the people, not the political parties, that can make the big difference.
It's not just a background noise question. It's not just a relationship issue. It's a new issue that is blocking the actual fabric of the country, stopping us from solving problems, dividing our families. You'll see data in a few days. Over 30% of Americans have ended a relationship in their own family as a function of political contempt and demonization. It's not that they disagree. It's that they demonize the person they disagree with.
Again, just an extraordinary event. If you've missed that, you can actually go online. Just go to the National Cathedral YouTube channel, and you can check out this forum with Malice Toward None, with Charity for All. Again, Governor Spencer Cox playing a lead role last night in that forum and that discussion with his Democratic colleague, Governor of Maryland, Wes Moore, along with Donna Brazil, Rachel Brand, legal scholar Ruth Okediji that we just listened to from Harvard, along with Tim Shriver, a friend of the show. All of that coming together for a different kind of conversation, and a very Utah model being taken to our nation's capital with the Wheatley Institute from Brigham Young University, Wesley Theological Seminary, coming together as part of that. And a great thing and a great place. It is such a majestic setting to have that kind of conversation. We need to replicate that. We need to duplicate that across the country, because if we celebrate those kind of conversations, I guarantee you we're going to get more of them, and that'll be good for the country. All right, we'll step aside for some bottom of the hour news. More Inside Sources coming up next right here on KSL News Radio.
It's 2:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Britt Johnson. KSL's top story this hour, a Utah lawmaker is explaining why he wants to use money from a sales tax increase to help fund a new NHL stadium in Salt Lake City. Senator Dan McKay tells David Dujanovic he wants to make another investment in the downtown area that keeps people coming through.
This place is amazing that we have this much opportunity, and we're trying to decide between the best options. And I love those kind of problems.
McKay says increasing the sales tax in Salt Lake City would generate $1 billion for a stadium over the next 30 years. The bill still needs to be approved by the legislature and the governor. If passed, the tax increase would need to be approved by the Salt Lake City Council as well. The Utah Division of Water Resources announced a new license plate that features the Great Salt Lake, and proceeds will be used to benefit and conserve the Great Salt Lake watershed and ecosystem. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. This month, Google launched Gemini, an artificial intelligence program that can generate text and images. But now the tech giant is facing pushback over some pictures the program created.
When prompted to generate images of German soldiers from the early 40s, Google Gemini produces images of black men and Asian women, according to a report from The Verge. Other outlets found similar historical inaccuracies when asking the program to generate images of popes or the founding fathers. Now, Google says it's pausing Gemini's ability to create images of people. It also says the feature does generate a wide range of people, and that's generally a good thing, but it's missing the mark here. Mike Dubusky, ABC News.
Your money at this moment, the Dow in the green, 456 points, S&P also up 105 points, and NASDAQ up 460 points. Coming up, taking a look at this weekend's forecast, KSL weather is next. KSL News Time, 2:31.
We hope you have the right app on your phone for news. You probably have dozens.
But the KSL News Radio app, well, it makes our live stream super easy.
Plus, our talk shows are right there as podcast for your workday.
That's the app for KSL News Radio.
Senate Bill 210 is a medical emergency at the Utah legislature. Ophthalmologists and optometrists are not the same. Optometrists don't complete medical school, no hospital internship, and no surgical residency. Ophthalmologists are medical doctors with years of surgical training on real patients. Now, optometrists want to perform surgery using lasers on the only eyes you'll ever have. Optometrists are not medical doctors, yet they want Senate Bill 210 to suddenly make them surgeons. Does that make sense to you? Your state legislator can help stop this nonsense by voting no. It takes years of training to make a surgeon. No bill can ever change that. Your legislator can help stop this nonsense. Tell your legislator to keep Utah eyes safe.
Paid for by the Utah Ophthalmology Society.
Tonight on a Law & Order Thursday event, we bid Jack McCoy farewell in Sam Waterston's final episode on Law & Order.
It's been a hell of a ride.
Then on SVU, the stunning conclusion of a case that's haunted Benson. And on Organized Crime, Stabler searches for a victim from his past.
I'm looking for someone I thought I'd save.
On a Law & Order Thursday event tonight on NBC.
Then stay tuned for KSL 5 News at 10.
Tonight on KSL, they found someone to build a deck.
He told me he was licensed.
They paid cash.
$11,615.
They were left with
Nothing, absolutely nothing. He took the money.
They decided to get Gephardt.
Why is he allowed to keep doing this? That's the question of what now I'm trying to figure out.
Why some unlicensed contractors are walking away with big bucks and small consequences, and what you can do about it. Get Gephardt, cited but not shut down. Tonight at 10 on KSL.
Pizza's here.
Oh, great. I'd love some, but I'm worried about my stomach issues.
If you're worried about having diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose, oily stools, it may not just be stomach issues. It could be a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and talk to your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
I'm Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I learned about atrial fibrillation the hard way. My symptoms would come and go: shortness of breath, fatigue. I kept going. Then I got so lightheaded, I couldn't. My doctor said I have AFib, so I'm about 5 times more likely to have a stroke. Other symptoms: irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain can come and go, but the risk of stroke stays. If you have symptoms, tell a doctor. Visit notimetowait.com.
Sponsored by Bristol-Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
Once again, I-80 traffic had been stopped completely, this time on the eastbound side, just before Kimball Junction at the SR 224 switch off. Right now, they're letting traffic go again, but we still have some backups in the area. The UACPA supports certified public accountants in Utah through ongoing professional education and leadership development. Find a CPA that works for you at uacpa.org. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, things will slowly warm up as we head into the weekend, getting up to 59 degrees on Sunday, and we get sunny skies over the next few days as well. It's Tuesday when more rain or snow can possibly be here. Right now, it's 45 degrees and partly cloudy. I'm Britt Johnson from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
We talked about the deficit of trust that we are facing with a lot of our elected officials, and we want to get under the headlines of a lot of that. It's easy to shrug shoulders and point fingers and place blame and say, oh, it's because this party's doing that or that politician is doing that. But there's much more to it that we have to get to if we're ever going to solve the problem, change the trajectory, which I think is crucial to the future of the country. You've heard me say this before. We have stress tested the United States of America in all kinds of incredibly difficult circumstances. We've done it through pandemics. We've done it through world wars. We've done it in the face of economic collapse. But the one thing we have not done in this country is we have not stress tested this nation in the absence of trust, particularly trust in institutions, let alone trust in each other. And both of those are waning, and that's disturbing. And that's something we've got to get to the bottom of so we can figure out how to get our way out of it. And it may be one of those, like when you're sinking in the water, you may have to hit bottom so you have something to push against to get back to the surface. And I know a lot of us are feeling that way, that we've been underwater, we're gasping for air, but we've got to find a place to push off from. And all of the latest polling, all of the latest indicators, when you really talk to the American people, is this trust deficit continues to mount. And there's a couple of levels of it that I think are really interesting. One of the things that we have noticed and have noted on this program before, based on some research from RMG, is that this lack of trust in government has continued to grow really since 1972. You can go back that far. And really the growth of the administrative state has sort of been in parallel with that growing distrust. There were actually only a couple of periods since 1972 where you've actually seen that trust gap change. And should not be surprising that the two times that there was a change and an increase in trust in government and government institutions, occurred during the Reagan years and during the Bill Clinton years. Obviously, Ronald Reagan was famous for the line that made everybody chuckle and be a little nervous as well, that the most feared words in the English language are, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help." And that sparked an era where things started to change. And because of that, public opinion and trust in government also changed. When Bill Clinton declared that the era of big government was over, it also sparked a change in public perception and trust in government. Since then, of course, we've seen nothing but an expansion of government, and we've also seen the expansion of performative politics in the social media age that has undermined our confidence and trust not only in the institutions, but in those who occupy the seats inside of those institutions. Now, all is not lost, of course. One of the most interesting things to me is that while trust in a lot of the big institutions has been waning, trust in local government has maintained a pretty high level. In fact, most Americans, 67% of Americans, trust local government to handle local problems. It's when you get to that federal level, the further you get away from the people and the accountability factor, the lower the trust level. That makes sense. But we're also seeing great erosion in some of the important institutions in our federal government. Of course, Congress has been wildly unpopular for quite some time now, and the favorability, the positive view of those in elected office has gone down. In fact, only 6% of voters, according to an RMG poll done just earlier this year, only 6% have a highly favorable opinion of members of Congress. 6%. I think that is lower than cancer, pneumonia, and the COVID-19 virus. That is very low on the popularity scale. Nobody has a favorable view. The more disturbing thing to me is we're starting to lose confidence in places where we used to have very high levels of trust, like the Supreme Court. As the Supreme Court continues to be weaponized and politicized, mostly because Congress continues to abdicate its authority to the executive branch. The executive branch is all too happy to take that power and use it and do things by rule from an agency or by executive order from the president, doesn't matter what party. And then somebody files a lawsuit. And then it works its way through the court and it ultimately ends up in the Supreme Court. So nobody should be surprised in any way, shape, or form that the appointment of people to the Supreme Court has become so weaponized and so politicized, because everything's ending up in the courts because Congress continues to abdicate its authority and not do its job, and the executive branch continues to overreach and do more than is actually its job. And so then people file lawsuits, and they think the way you get things done is not to take on Washington or not to embrace or engage with your representative, but to file a lawsuit. And all of that just undermines trust, and it leads us to the most dangerous space of all, and that is that we've not only lost trust in the institutions of government, we've lost trust in each other. That's the most worrisome thing to me. For years and years, decades, if you were asked the question, do you trust your neighbor? That was a 80% plus respondent every single time. Everybody trusted their neighbor. Everybody knew their neighbor. And now the number of people in America who trust their neighbor is in the low 20s. And for young people, it's in the teens. And so that's the real test for us. If we're going to build this thing back out, I guarantee you it's not going to happen with an executive order or an act of Congress. It's going to require an act of courage and an act of engagement from you and me, with our neighbors, then our neighborhood, then our community, then our state, and that's how you build trust. Trust is done one relationship, not one transaction, one relationship at a time is how you build trust. And the fact that we continue to lose that is, to me, one of the most troubling parts of what's going on and not going on in our country. If we do not put trust first in this country, we are not going to have a country that will actually last. All right, we're going to step aside for one last commercial break. We'll come back with some final thoughts on Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. Stick around. We'll be right back.
There are two amazing productions, very different productions, on the stages right now at Hale Center Theater. One is Clue, that I thoroughly enjoyed. It is a madcap comedy, and as I mentioned, it has the greatest death scene I have ever seen on the stage. Then down the hall in the theater in the round, it's Fiddler on the Roof. It is breathtaking. You are going to love both productions that are underway right now at Hale Center Theater, but there's so much more to come. May We All, a country musical, is coming up next. Then The Time Machine, The Nutty Professor, The Addams Family, which is wonderful, and The Magician's Elephant Plus. The season wraps up just before the Christmas production of A Christmas Carol, Disney's Beauty and the Beast. Get your tickets now. Go to hct.org. And be sure to pick up gift cards, too. They're perfect just to slip in a thank you card. Go to hct.org.
What a difference a week makes. Cold and rain last week, sun and 50s next week.
Mid-50s for the weekend?
Utah weather is never dull.
It's just incredible.
For a reliable forecast every 10 minutes on the 9s, tune in mornings and afternoons.
We have you covered on KSL News Radio.
Have you Googled yourself lately? Are there negative posts from an ex-employee or from a former client? Maybe an outdated news article or sensitive personal information about your family? Search engines don't always get it right. For right or wrong, it's your reputation on the line. That's where Reputation Defender by Norton comes in. One of the most trusted names in online reputation repair, Reputation Defender has been fixing people's search results for over 15 years. Their cutting-edge approaches help you to wipe away unwanted information in your search results. They also promote the good stuff so that it rises to the top, helping you put your best foot forward. Your good name is too valuable to leave to the whims of a Google algorithm. Take control with Reputation Defender. You can start by getting your free reputation report card at reputationdefender.com or call 800-401-6681 to speak to an expert. That's 800-401-6681.
Some things just make sense. But my dream checking account from Cyprus Credit Union makes dollars and cents. It gives me access to discounted rates on auto and RV loans, free 24/7 access to my credit score and report, and a roundup reward savings that pays me 10% APY on the rounded up balance of every debit purchase I make. With all that and more, it's no wonder I choose Cyprus for my checking account, because some things make dollars and cents. Learn more at cypruscu.com. Cyprus Credit Union. Your future is our future. Federally insured by NCUA. Rate subject to change.
The KSL News Radio Movie Show comes to My Hearing Centers this Friday from 10 to 1. But first, discover what My Hearing Centers can do for you. My Hearing Centers uses advanced technology to diagnose and treat hearing loss. These comprehensive evaluations determine the best treatment options. Then enjoy lifetime support with regular check-ins, cleaning, and maintenance. Call My Hearing Centers at 801-701-1629 for details. 801-701-1629.
Hi, I'm Henry Winkler. My eyes are very important to me. My eyes connect me with everything I love. I loved my late father-in-law dearly. He always lit up a room, but his vision dimmed with age. He had age-related macular degeneration, or AMD. And since partnering with Apellis, I've learned there's an advanced form of dry AMD called geographic atrophy, or GA. His struggle with vision loss made me want to help others know about GA's warning signs. For some, colors appear dull or washed out. For others, hazy or blurred vision make it hard to see details, like fine print on price tags. Many have trouble seeing in the dark, making driving at night difficult. GA gets worse over time and cannot be reversed. If you think you have GA, don't wait. Treatments are available. Ask a retina specialist about FDA-approved treatments for GA and go to GAWon'tWait.com.
Grab your family and some gear and head to the 2024 Skijoring the Bear exhibition in Garden City on Friday, February 23rd. Bring your skis and join the race, or attend as a spectator to watch horses pull skiers through a course with jumps. Race divisions include Open, Novice, and Rookie, with buckles and cash prizes for the division winners. Everyone can enjoy food trucks, vendors, and more. Skijoring the Bear in Garden City, just west of Heritage Park. Helmets are required for skijoring, and you need to bring your own skis. Kids 10 to 12 are free. Great lodging deals can be found at bearlake.org. Attend this exhibition event on Friday, February 23rd to see or experience the excitement of skijoring. Visit skijoringthebear.com for more information. Skijoringthebear.com.
Guys, did you know your testosterone affects everything in your system, including how you feel and perform every day? Right now, Revive Men's Health Salt Lake City will check your testosterone for free. Knowing your T levels is the first step in understanding if you have low T. Your testosterone level impacts your energy, libido, sleep, weight, hair loss, mood, and even ED. Maintaining an appropriate T level can change your whole life. Most men start to see changes in their hormone levels in their 30s. Experience and results matter. So what are you waiting for? Get your T levels checked today by local, experienced, and trusted men's health experts. They've helped thousands of men since 2011. They're so confident they can help you, they even guarantee it. Call Revive today and schedule your free testosterone test, free exam, and free consultation. Call Revive Men's Health at 801-263-7777. That's 801-263-7777. Or visit ReviveMen'sHealth.com.
The life of a small business owner. Keeping the lights on, calling all the shots. And then there's workplace accidents. 500-degree ovens, rusty nails. Danger lurks around every corner. Workplace accidents can happen, but there is an easy way to keep your employees covered. Talk to your agent about workers' comp coverage from Pi, or go to piinsurance.com and get a quote. Safety first, then Pi Insurance. Individual rates, offerings, and savings may vary, subject to policy terms and conditions. Not available in all states and situations.
Mr. Mac's buy one get one sale. Buy one suit for $299. Get the second for $100. Any style, any occasion. Free alterations in 9 locations. Mr. Mac.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Britt Johnson. First, Senator Dan McKay says he wants to make another investment in the downtown area that keeps people coming through, like an NHL stadium. Second, Utah Division of Water Resources announced a new license plate that features the Great Salt Lake, and proceeds will be used to benefit it. Third, Google is facing pushback over some pictures their new AI program, Gemini, created. Right now, it's 45 degrees and partly sunny in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson, and as we round out the program today, something always catches my eye as we go through the course of the day. And, of course, I've been keeping one eye towards March the 7th, which is when President Biden will deliver the State of the Union. That is an annual undertaking, and sadly it's turned into far more of a political rally than it is a State of the Union. It is supposed to be a State of the Union, by the way, not a State of the Government. And we'll take that on as we get a little closer to March the 7th. I will do for the, I think, 25th year in a row, do my own version of the State of the Union. So we'll have that coming up as we march towards March the 7th. In the interim, someone has taken a really amazing swing at a different kind of speech, not a State of the Union, but a State of the Culture. What is the state of the culture in America in 2024? This is a deep dive look that you all should go read on the Honest Broker Substack. Ted Gioia is the author of it. He is a cultural critic. He's a music historian. He's a record producer. He's a jazz pianist. He's published 12 books, all translated into 9 different languages. And he is the author of the Substack newsletter, The Honest Broker. So he has some street cred when it comes to culture. And the thing that caught my attention today was he started a conversation about his state of the culture, talking about art and how we're losing that in the country. And sadly, how it's not the problem we think it is, but it's actually much worse. So he framed it in this context that we often look at when it comes to art, that art has sort of been swallowed up by entertainment. And he goes down this progression that goes from art to entertainment, to distraction, ultimately to addiction in our culture. And it's sort of why do you need Hamlet if you can just take a picture of your cheeseburger and post that on your social media? You can get that dopamine hit and away you go. And so we're losing that ability to appreciate art and music and literature because everything is becoming so fast. And so I want to go down through this a little bit from this piece on his Substack, The Honest Broker, because I think this is instructive for us in terms of a lot of the things that we ought to be worrying about, a lot of the things that we ought to be thinking about when it comes to our culture. You've heard me say it on the show many, many times that culture leads, politicians will follow, but where is the culture going? And if we've lost our ability to think deeply, to observe, to experience awe and wonder and humility and curiosity, there's a whole host of things that follow. And a lot of it is because we have gone from the ability to appreciate and engage in art, again, whether that's actual art, music, literature, to this entertainment space. But that's going away as well. In fact, you can even look at a lot of the big entertainment companies that are having some real trouble. Disney, Paramount, Universal, Warner Brothers, all of those are having struggles in staying afloat and staying competitive because the market continues to change. Because we've gone from this entertainment space, and now we're in this space that he defines as distraction. And distraction is what we all experience on social media. It's an economy of distraction. Scrolling, swiping, doom scrolling, all of those things, TikTok, those are all things that are quick, distractive hits. And when that's all you engage in, it is actually the path to addiction. It's the same process. And he actually spells this out in the piece really well. You go from a stimulus and a distraction to this dopamine hit and release. And that, of course, gives you pleasure in your brain. And then you want more. And then you reinforce that with another stimulus, distraction, dopamine hit. And then suddenly you're forming a habit, which ultimately becomes an addiction. And Silicon Valley understands that. And they're profiting off of this addiction culture. So all of the platforms that used to be in charge of serving up some nice entertainment for us have gone from entertainment to distraction and now to addiction. So they're shifting to scrolling, reeling interfaces. That stimulus just keeps going, so the dopamine doom loop just keeps coming at you. And they don't want you to go anywhere else. Remember when you used to go through your feed and you could say, oh, I want to go to that, and you'd click on it and it would take you to another site. Well, they don't want that. That doesn't help their economic model. They want you to stay in the same space. So TikTok's going to serve up all the things based on the algorithms to keep you right there because they have to keep you on the site. They have to keep you in that algorithm. And the others are doing that as well. Apple, Facebook, everybody's playing along in the game. But the sad thing is the further we go down that path, the further we get from connection, and the more we just get into this process. And it's sort of this path. If you took it from an athletic standpoint, really pointed out well in the state of the culture on this platform today, talking about how you go from playing a sport to watching a sport to gambling on a sport. Gambling's very addictive. It's the dopamine hit that keeps you coming back and keeps you going. Journalism has gone down the same path.